It is the summer of 1942. The North African desert stretches endlessly under the scorching sun. Armies clash over sand and rock, but here, order begins to crumble. Commands fail. Men are left without direction. Chaos quietly spreads across the battlefield. By mid-1942, the North African campaign had become a deadly chessboard. The Axis forces, led by General Erwin Rommel, pressed westward with surprising speed. Opposing them, the British Eighth Army struggled to hold a line across the harsh desert terrain. Supply lines were long and fragile. Water and fuel ran short, often vanishing before reaching the front. Amid this struggle, units were stretched thin. Communication relied on radios that often failed under the sand, and messengers risked their lives crossing open desert. Commanders faced immense pressure to anticipate the enemy, coordinate movements, and prevent collapse. Yet the desert had its own rules. Heat, dust, and fatigue eroded both men and machines. In this environment, small misjudgments could trigger disaster. On one afternoon in June, a brigade received orders that seemed clear. But the message was delayed. By the time it arrived, the situation on the ground had changed. Officers argued over interpretations. Conflicting instructions reached different units. Troops moved in opposing directions, some advancing, others retreating. The rhythm of battle faltered. Soldiers on the front lines could only follow what they saw around them. Without clear orders, initiative fell to junior officers and sergeants. Some acted bravely, others hesitated. Equipment broke down. Tanks got stuck in the shifting sand. Artillery was misaligned. Even a single misfired shell could endanger nearby units. Morale teetered. Men began questioning leadership, whispering about orders that made no sense. The desert heat magnified every small failure. Commanders were desperate to regain control, sending repeated messages that only added to confusion. In this precarious moment, the seeds of catastrophe were planted. This was not a battle of strength alone. It was a battle of coordination, trust, and timing. And in June 1942, as the North African sun burned above, command began to falter. As the days progressed, disorder spread. Reconnaissance units reported enemy movements, but the reports were contradictory. The high command struggled to process the flood of information. Some divisions were told to hold positions that had already been abandoned. Others were instructed to attack across dangerous terrain. In one key sector, a regiment received an order to advance through a narrow pass. Miscommunication led another regiment to retreat from the same area. They crossed paths in confusion, exposing themselves to enemy artillery. A single artillery strike caused panic. Soldiers scattered, abandoning vehicles and weapons. The chain of command dissolved in moments. Officers attempted to re-establish order, but messages were constantly outdated. By nightfall, units were fragmented. Temporary leaders emerged, improvising strategies in pockets of desert. Rumors of enemy breakthroughs spread faster than the enemy itself. The desert itself became an accomplice. Dust storms obscured visibility. Engines overheated. Vehicles sank into soft sand. Soldiers became disoriented, moving blindly in circles. Attempts to regroup only deepened the chaos. Meanwhile, Rommel's forces exploited every gap. They advanced rapidly, forcing retreating units into defensive positions that had never been prepared. Communication breakdowns meant reinforcements arrived too late or in the wrong location. Supply convoys were ambushed. Every misstep compounded the next. By mid-campaign, the situation was spiraling. What had started as minor delays and unclear instructions now threatened entire brigades. The once disciplined rhythm of the army was replaced by hesitation, fear, and improvisation. The North African desert was no longer just a battlefield, it was a labyrinth where command had lost its map. The peak of the disaster arrived on a day that seemed ordinary. Reports from the front lines were delayed. Some units had disappeared from maps. Commanders could not locate their own regiments. Artillery fire fell upon friendly troops. Tanks collided in the sand. In the central sector, a brigade attempted to form a defensive line. But soldiers were scattered, some exhausted, some lost. Orders contradicted each other. Communication lines were dead. Panic set in. Men abandoned vehicles and weapons. Officers shouted through the heat, trying to rally the fragmented units. By nightfall, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Tracks of vehicles crisscrossed aimlessly. Fires burned abandoned supplies. Bodies lay in the open. The enemy had advanced further than anyone had expected. The command structure, once a backbone, had vanished. Losses were immense. Units ceased to exist as organized entities. Supplies, artillery, and vehicles were lost. Soldiers wandered in the desert, uncertain where to go. The consequences of a few failed orders rippled across miles of terrain. What began as confusion became catastrophe. In that moment, the North African campaign had an invisible turning point. It was not a battle won or lost by force. It was lost to disorder, to miscommunication, and to the desert itself. The morning after, the desert was silent. The sun rose slowly, casting long shadows over the empty battlefield. Tracks of vehicles were barely visible in the shifting sand. Fires from the previous night smoldered in patches. Black smoke curled into the sky, then disappeared into the heat haze. Abandoned vehicles lay scattered. Tanks were overturned, artillery pieces broken. Soldiers had left them behind. Some had fled on foot. Others had been captured or killed. The sand claimed them. Equipment and supplies were lost. Ammunition boxes lay open, their contents spilled across the dunes. Boots and helmets marked paths that no one would follow. Corpses were scattered in small groups or alone. Some lay in unnatural positions, frozen in the last moments of panic. Others were partially buried by wind-driven sand. Faces were turned toward the sky, eyes wide, staring at nothing. The sun reflected harshly on their uniforms. No one came to bury them. No one would remember. The units were gone. Brigades ceased to exist as organized entities. Maps that once showed their positions now had empty spaces. Commanders could not report the losses. Messages never reached headquarters. Every chain of command had broken. A few officers survived, wandering in confusion. They searched for soldiers who no longer answered their calls. The desert had erased them. Supply lines were severed. Water and food were gone. Vehicles meant to carry reinforcements had been abandoned or destroyed. Artillery could not be used. Radios were dead. Messages bounced off nothing. Orders were lost in the sand. The desert was a void where communication failed. The army had existed, but now it was only fragments. Men wandered without direction. Some moved toward distant hills, hoping to find others. Some dug shallow shelters to escape the sun. Others collapsed in the sand, exhausted and dehydrated. Dust covered them. Sweat dried into their uniforms. Eyes squinted against the glare. They whispered names that no one answered. Friends had vanished. Families would never know. The enemy had advanced further than anyone expected. Rommel's forces encountered little resistance. But even they would not know the full scope of the chaos. The battle had become invisible. It existed in sand, in silence, in scattered tracks. There were no formal reports. Only fragments remained, scattered like the soldiers themselves. Over the next days, the desert continued its work. Wind erased footprints. Sun bleached abandoned equipment. Fires burned out completely. The landscape became uniform, empty, indifferent. The sounds of battle faded entirely. Only the occasional rattling of wind through metal reminded anyone it had happened. Command tried to rebuild. Reinforcements were sent, but they found only scattered units. Maps showed gaps. Headquarters could not fill in the details. Each story of loss, panic, and confusion became another forgotten fragment. Official records were sparse. Diaries, if kept, were lost. Letters home were intercepted or destroyed. The memory of the soldiers, the decisions, the chaos, faded into silence. History almost forgot this day. There were no grand monuments. No songs or victories celebrated. Only the desert remembered. Only the sand kept the shapes of what had been. Men, orders, equipment, gone. The sun rose again. Silence endured. The North African desert swallowed the echoes of a battle that had once roared. And slowly, quietly, almost everyone who had lived through it disappeared from memory. The desert had taken everything. Commands, lives, machines, hope. Only emptiness remained. Only sand, wind, and silence. A battle, a disaster, a catastrophe, lost. Forgotten, these stories are rarely told. Subscribe if you want to hear the next one.